Good evening. This is HimanshuBhayani. You're watching the digital video bulletin in English language of datelinegujaratnews.com. So, what's buzzing in the news today across the world? The world media is flooded with the news of Trump trials, arrest of Trump, the courts ordering Trump to be paid by legal fees, paid with legal fees, which Stormy Daniels has to pay almost $1.22 thousand dollars. $121,000. So that's more or less in the news. And Trump has pled not guilty for the 34 felony counts, which equally there is opinion piece which says that with not guilty, Trump enters probably period of potential legal peril. So there are chances that this will continue. On the other hand, Johnson & Johnson has filed for second bankruptcy to pursue the $8.9 million TELC lawsuit from Russia and Ukraine war zone. Fearing for his life, Putin is now hiding in bunkers and has been living on information cocoons. That's the news. And Kremlin has threatened action as Finland joins NATO. As well, they've said that Russia has also warned retaliatory measures as NATO deals historic blow. They are shaken. That's what it is. And the Wall Street Journal reporter who was arrested in Russia has been allowed to meet his lawyers after the diplomats from US and Russia, they engaged into a telephonic conversation. And I think this is the development in the matter which has been reported largely in the media across the world. Ukrainian media has alleged that Armenia is actively helping Russia to bypass all sorts of international and Western sanctions. All the business is being done through Armenia. Trace routed, bypassed. That's how it's done. On the other hand, the good news or the bad news or whatever you call it, Chinese currency yuan is gaining traction as international trade settlement currency. We talked about Brazil yesterday, how they have the reserves of renminbi after dollars, and now this is. And today, a Reuters poll has happened which said that most of the currencies, the peer currencies, which are gaining momentum in the rates race, RATES, RACE, rates race, they are likely to kind of bring a low flip to the US dollar. It might not shine. Of course, it was having a world trade share of 71%, which has come to 59%. There has already been a erosion of 12%. Now this further will spill several effects with several currencies being accepted for the international settlement, the way rupee has been accepted across 68 countries in the world, Indian rupee. So this is the news. Japan government does a survey. 1.5 million people, 15 lakh people are living alone after COVID-19. And US has gained access to the Philippines military bases near Taiwan and South China Sea. And in developments which are surfacing from Middle East, Iran has called for preventing arms race in the outer space. Gaza factions have launched a rocket because what happened at Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem after the Israeli police barged in, forced people, it has been condemned by several leaders from the Arab Spring. Gaza has retaliated equally. Israel is also ready to retaliate with all lenses triggered towards Palestine from their aircrafts and from their naval ships and from their artilleries. So let's wait and watch. It's a kind of a little dicey situation in Israel and Palestine. France has hiked its military revisit age to 70, and radio signals from aliens is a hint that possibly there is a human life outside Earth. So this is happening, and this is happening in a very different manner. Going ahead on the Asian Silk Route, what's happening in Asia? Taliban government is blocking female Afghan staffers. That's the news. The news pack of Asia is largely dominated with the news from Afghanistan. UN tells Afghan staff not to report for 48 hours because they want to solve this problem with the Taliban authorities. Why this ban on Afghan women of not being allowed to work? And in an alarming report, the Central Asian river levels poised for dramatic plunge, forcing urgent measures. So this is something which is really knocky and worrying. Japan has approved a law. It will start funding the defense projects in the foreign countries. Right now they are working with Philippines and Malaysia, but this could expand. The footprints could expand. That is what it is. China calls on Japan to correct the chip restrictions, the chip exports restrictions, because yesterday China said that this will help us being self-reliant in chip production. Today China has just kind of taken a U-turn in its statement. It seems they have That we cannot do without the Japanese chips. In other developments, Taiwanese and US leaders, they're going to meet despite all the warnings from China, and North Korea basically it's planning. North Korea, what they have done is that they have opened their border market. They have increased the timing for the border market because there are some birthday celebrations of people from regime. So they are allowing people to buy the things to celebrate that birthday even. And this is how the dictators work in the world. Even the market timings they control. Any which ways, going ahead, South Korea holds a drill with US involving the strategic bomber aircrafts. And in the same process, they've also engaged with the Asian allies to kind of take countermeasures against North Korea. In another set of news, I already talked about the Taiwanese and US leaders they have met. Another set of news from SAARC region. Myanmar has arrested 130 Rohingya Muslims who were trying to sail to Malaysia. Whereas in the massive fire report in Bangladesh cloth market, it has been roused, it has been controlled by the firefighters and Bangladesh army, and the kind of loss it is being gauged over there. Asia's growth will accelerate. That is what the Asian Development Bank has said after the China reopens. So the way China was in the zero COVID policy and the way it's reopening, it will accelerate. That's what they're telling. I talked already about the dollar, the Reuters poll, and now it's about the Papa John's quick service restaurant. That's a pizza outlet. It's going to open 650 outlets in India by 2023. Pizza. Any which ways, going ahead. Middle East, the magnificent Middle East. What's happening in magnificent? It has been more in the news since Sunday with the OPEC plus oil production cut news and announcements, and yesterday Iran, Israel and Syria activities, US killing the main planner of IS for the European attacks. A lot of action from that front. Of course, the news is dominated with the pack of news from Israel, which we already talked about, and Saudi and finance ministers are going to meet tomorrow. That's on Thursday in Beijing. On the other hand, Iran, Iraq, Syria and Saudi Arabia envoys, they've also held a meeting, and based on that, there is a report which says that probably US is likely to push Israel for an interim nuke deal with Iran. Iran is with China. Saudi and Iran are now together due to, their diplomatic relations are improving because of China. Iran is equally functioning in a notion with Russia. World chessboard, how the pawns are moving, just see. Iran probes the possible drone attacks on the Isfahan's defense ministry site for now, while Iraq is buzzing with business action also. The interior Iran minister has already said, the Iran interior minister has already said that we are not in a position to confirm the attacks. So they have given a kind of diplomatic statement. But a lot of activity in terms of business, which is buzzing from Iraq and Turkey. The oil trade has started again. Erbil, that's the Kurdistan region area of Iraq, and Baghdad. They have inked the oil deal, and they will be supplying the oil to Turkey back. This will be handled by the State Oil Marketing Organization, what is known as SOMO in Iran. And tenders have been floated out of 6 refineries. Tenders have been floated for 3 major refineries to be constructed in Iran. And Total Energies has agreed on a multi-billion-dollar energy deal. Total Energies, which is partnering with Adani's, which already partnered with Adani's in India, they have agreed for a multi-billion-dollar energy deal. This is going to be like with the Iraqi government, and even the Qatari Energy has been one of the beneficiaries of this. So it's going to be a kind of France, Qatar, France, Qatar, Iraq, and that's how the new, and Turkey, of course. That's how the new excess of oil or energy security is being formed. US is getting involved to end up the process, the peace process in Yemen, because Saudi Arabia said that they want to end the war. They were fighting a war with the Houthi rebels, who were again supported by Iran. Now Saudi and Iran relationships have improved. So war has to come to an end. After all, war is a business. Any which ways, Suez Canal is back in news. Tankers have collided in Greater Bitter Lake. You remember that tanker which was going, and then the cargo ship, it just came this way and the whole traffic was blocked. Going this way, came this way, whole traffic was blocked, and now again tankers have collided in Suez Canal. So let's see how fast this is happening. Rampant inflation in Egypt, that's squeezing the Ramadan charities. So people who want to donate something as a food or something, they are not able to do it. The budgets are constrained. That's what how the inflation is playing. So everywhere currencies are depreciating, inflation is rising, it's squeezing, it's putting a kind of squeeze on everybody's pockets. And amidst that, the news of oil production cut, inflation is going to skyrocket, I'm sure about it. Turkey is busy creating the new air defense system while Russian and aircraft target the hospitals and border crossing area. So they said we'll have a new air defense system. So that's what's happening in Middle East. Mysterious Africa, as I title it as Mysterious Africa, there are lots of mysteries today because a Chinese naval surveillance ship has anchored on the docks of South African port. In another report, South African citizen who was kidnapped in Libya is alive. He was kidnapped before 6 years. He's alive. He was sold to Al Qaeda in Mali, sold to Al Qaeda group in Mali. I mean, look what is happening in the world. Zimbabwe government has decided to break its silence on the gold smuggling allegations. So that's now how the things will proceed ahead over there in Zimbabwe. And in another development, UN report says that situation in Mali continues to deteriorate. African Union peacekeepers convoy has been hit by explosion in Somalia, in contrast to which Ethiopian intelligence have prevented an attack which was planned by Amhara terror group. So they have caught hold those guys who were planning an attack. And energy, I mean the Egypt and Cyprus agreed to enhance cooperation in energy and defense sectors. So this is also something happening in that landscape. Interesting news comes from the media domain in Africa daily almost. The day before yesterday we saw how the journalists were, attacked in that demonstrations in Nairobi. Two journalists, French journalists, how they were kind of asked to move out, one from La Monde, another from the Liberation, the French newspapers. Yesterday we saw that women journalists, they leave the job because they are not paid good salary in Africa. We talk about the Sahel region and the kind of problems journalists are facing from the jihadists and the authorities based on the findings of the report of Reporters Without Borders. Today a similar news comes. I want to read that headline. That headline is interesting. It says, RT moves its pawns in Africa, opening a bureau in Algeria when foreign reporters are able to keep working only as long as the government tolerates them. The Russian propaganda TV channel RT, the former Russia Today, has now opened bureau in Algiers. This reflects a strange viewpoint of pluralism on Algeria's part and a new deployment strategy by the RT network, which Reporters Without Borders, again, RSF, they have investigated and they have reported. So, I mean, look at the way the things are shaping in the media domain in Africa. Kenya's private sector, it's getting kind of contracted in March because the shilling is losing, it's weakening, and the rising price and the rising cost and inflation and lack of access to dollars. So this is, kind of burning the bridges. That's the survey which has been displayed on Wednesday, and that's how it is. IMF, International Monetary Fund, and Rwanda, they've reached on an agreement to review the new loan facility, which is almost in tune of $319 million. So it's the loan arrangement between IMF and Rwanda, and they've reviewed it. They've reached the new terms and conditions basically. Eccentric Europe. What's happening in Europe? Europe, the news spec is, the European playbook, I call it, the news playbook, is largely led by the news from Russia and Ukraine. Russian intelligence have warned a situation in Ukraine has taken features of religious war. Now, which religious leaders are who are participating in this war? This is something one has to understand. And this report comes at such a time where Ukraine has already trained 40,000 recruits who are supposed to storm brigade troops for counter-offensive. So now it has been given a shape of a religious war. Russia warns NATO as Belarus seeks nuke upgrade on aircrafts and missiles. And Putin's elite security officer, who has managed to escape from Russia, he defects him, calling him a war criminal. He has said that Putin is a war criminal and all the necessary kind of legal action should be taken against him. So what's felt in Moscow mainly because of the Russia and Ukraine war? Because of the Russia and Ukraine war, the most burnt are the fancy bars and restaurants in Moscow, where the oligarchs and the millennials go to have their meals and their snacks and chit chat and coffee and everything. Because one thing is that with the sanctions, imports are costly, and the kind of food which might be served in those restaurants, of course might be costly and of some quality. So that is costly. Secondly, they say that the millennials or that clout or that rich class, that wealthy clientele has gone away from Russia. So it's almost going to be like, what do you call it? A kind of hounded place, vacant tables, nobody there, war zone. That's how it is. A ray of hope gets reflected. When you hear the news that Joe Biden and Macron, they're going to talk on the China's role. Macron is of course, in USA in White House, and they are going to likely to talk on the China's role in Ukraine's peace. So I think it's moving towards that side, that everybody is now talking the first word, peace after the war. In another report, cargo ship sinks off the Turkish coast. 9 crew members are missing, 3 are dead. And Swiss regulators have warned that the Switzerland's banking space could be in trouble if Credit Suisse goes bankrupt. Bailout is being worked with UBS, but if still it goes bankrupt, Switzerland's banking space could be in trouble. So you know what Switzerland is famous for: Swiss chocolates, Swiss cheese, Swiss Alps, and black money in Swiss banks. Any which ways, black money even from India. So going ahead, what's worsening the housing crisis in Portugal is that it's hitting the diverse neighborhood. Vulnerable residents who are living near Lisbon, they are, kind of given evacuation notices, allegedly ordered in arbitrary manner to vacate their houses. So this is happening with the poor people in Portugal. Italy bans ChatGPT. After this comes in, kind of privacy regulators in France and Ireland have reached out to the counterparts in Italy to find more about the basis and ban, and Germany could also follow in the Italy's footsteps. This is happening. ChatGPT nahi chahiye bhai. It's hitting the white collar jobs, even the blue collar jobs. In an interesting piece of news, UK minister is mulling law change to define sex as biological. So the word sex will be replaced by the word biological. She told that the definition changes could provide greater legal clarity. So let's see how this happens and how this spends. Going ahead in America, what's happening in US? In US, it's loaded, like double cheese loaded kind of news. And the news is loaded with Trump trials and arrest of Trump and all Trump drama. But amidst that, what's happening in Canada? Today lays out a plan for grow Canada's clean economy. And a news of worry appears from TD Bank, that's Toronto Dominion Bank, where it says that's the biggest sector short anywhere in the world, with 3.7 billion at a stake, with TD's exposure to Canada's housing slowdown and ties in US market. God only save TD now, that's what we can say. And the investors and the depositors, of course. Any which ways, in a rescuing approach, Mexico has approached, Mexico has reached out to China to help on fentanyl. They said, please stop shipment because US is pressurizing us. So the Mexican president has approached the Chinese president, requesting to help the control shipments of fentanyl, while complaining about the rude threats from the US legislatures over the drug trade. And utility company Iberdrola, that's a Spanish company, it will aim for US subsidiaries after the Mexican asset sale. That's been quoted by the chief financial officer, Jose Sanis, and he has said that the 6 billion assets which are there in Mexico, once sold, that's a gas assets basically. Once they are sold, that money will be used in the US subsidiaries. Russian billionaire owns super luxury yacht in the Caribbean. That is almost now edging closer for the sale. Till 31st, the government had given a deadline. There were some issues pertaining to its ownership. So now it's edging towards the sale. And lawmakers in Caribbean islands have called for probe of US armed trafficking, because US is giving weapons to Ukraine, and those weapons are sold through darknet, are smuggled by Mexican cartels and Mexican crime cartels and Mexican drug cartels, and even in the Caribbean nations. So they have said that you need to just check on this, and you need to get you need to probe this, that how this US based arms trafficking is happening in Caribbeans. Haiti rights group records threefold rise in kidnappings. UN had already warned Haiti is becoming a gang rule state, and now this surfaces. In news from Brazil and Argentina, what is happening in the Massa, the Argentinian minister has discussed trade with a group of US senators because Argentina is reeling under pressure of 100% inflation. So that's the news. And Brazilian authorities have framed new rule for demonstrations in Brasilia following the Jan 8 riots and what happened to the Bolsonaro. So the new rules for demonstrations. Construction of Brazil-bound, the floating production, storage and offloading vessel, which is used in oil and gas sector, that has kicked off in Chinese shipyard and the delivery will be happening soon. In another update from the financial sector from Brazil, Brazil-based investment bank BTG Pactual will be launching a dollar-backed stable coin. It's again a kind of a cryptocurrency and that will be launched by Brazil. So they already have this Chinese currency, digital currency. They are sitting on that. Now they will launch their own, another set of currency, cryptocurrency. Costa Rica blocks Ortega's attempts to bring Russia into SICA. Costa Rican Deputy Foreign Minister Christian Gilmet has said that his government does not see the conditions to formalize the inclusion of Russia. So please stop. That's what they have said. In a joint operation between Europol and Brazilian cops, they have jointly busted a cocaine ring in South America, in Latin America, which was spread across, which was involving Bolivia, Paraguay and Brazilian ports. So it was kind of spread across the Latin American subcontinent and they have busted that in a joint operation. In headlines from the playful Pacifics, that is Australia and New Zealand, yesterday we talked about it. They're more or less the follow-ups basically. Yesterday we talked how Anthony Albanese banned TikTok on the government phones, and this happened at the time when Australian and Chinese diplomats were meeting. They're going to meet to discuss the trade sanctions, to ease up the trade sanctions. And today Anthony Albanese says that he has not received invitation to visit China. And equally in the case of the New Zealand government buildings where the Chinese cameras were found, when the cameras were found on the houses of the member of parliament. So a ministerial statement has also come that New Zealand will unlikely audit Chinese security camera. So let it go the way it is. We don't care. Data theft victim in Australia is alarmed. He has said that Australia may inadvertently fuel cybercrime. With the kind of experience with the way the tech companies are working, there has to be some kind of more set of regulations on them. A new drone program has been awarded by Australian funding, has been awarded Australia. So Australia will fund a new drone program. An Australian defence sales catalogue that has been released. It's going to be a part of that defence meet or defence event, whatever it is. New Zealand launches a 10-year plan to grow women's game. Interestingly, why is the most popular car, leading New Zealand car brand, which was a leading New Zealand car brand leading in 2022, why it's struggling in 2023? It's an interesting piece to read. You can just see how the shift is happening in the brands and kind of space, in automotive space also. Frozen polars, new research building in Antarctica. It has been sealed in time for winters, and projected collapse of crucial Antarctica currents met with media silence. So media needs to speak about it. That's a kind of a piece which has appeared in those medias, mainly in the Arctics and the polar region dominated medias. Russia to deploy more nuke weapons in Arctic after Finland joined NATO. Putin will escalate tensions in attempt to intimidate Europe and West. Finland officially joined NATO on Tuesday, infuriating Russian officials. The Kremlin warned the countermeasures that analysts warned could see Russia increasing its nuclear arsenal in Arctic Circle to the east of Finland. So this keeps US on the toes. And what happens with US? The US Defense Department is working aggressively on the Arctic strategy, on the Arctic policy. And there are all possibilities that the way US has now started working, Russia risks of losing the dominance over the Arctic sea route as well as in Arctics to China and Turkey, the way China is getting involved in Arctics. So what is really happening is worth interesting and worth keeping an eye and observing as to what is happening over there. While an interesting piece, makes worth a read as to, it's about India, as to how the Arctic has wielded influence on the Indian monsoons for over the last 1,000 years. A climate reconstruction study has found links between warm and cold conditions in the Arctic and rainfall over the Indian subcontinent. This is the news for the day. Thank you. Have a good day. Good night. Tomorrow is Hanuman Jayanti. Wishing you the greetings and happy wishes for the Hanuman Jayanti. Thank you.